This free program is paid for by the listener members of KPFK. If you're not already a member, consider joining with us and keep free speech alive.
Anti-government crowds from rooftops. 61 people died yesterday alone, their bodies littering the streets. Libya's foreign diplomats have been defecting en masse, including the country's U.S. ambassador. In a defiant speech on state television yesterday, Gaddafi pledged to not step down. He called on Libyans to retake the city of Benghazi, now controlled by pro-democracy forces. Recent WikiLeaked U.S. diplomatic cables have described Gaddafi as a, quote, mercurial and eccentric figure who suffers from severe phobias, end quote. Yet the U.S. still did business with Gaddafi. In 2004, George Bush took Libya off the state terror list in order to open up the oil-rich nation to foreign investment. It's 1 minute past the hour. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, whose bill to kill collective bargaining rights for public sector unions is causing an uproar among state employees, has strong ties to billionaires Charles and David Koch. The brothers have used their vast wealth to fight a cap-and-trade climate bill, the Health Care Reform Act, and the economic stimulus package. Koch Industries' Political Action Committee has doled out millions to right-wing candidates, including $43,000 to Governor Walker during the 2010 election. The Political Action Committee additionally gave $1 million to the Republican Governors Association, $65,000 of which was subsequently funneled to Walker. The New York Times said today that representatives from Koch-backed Americans for Prosperity have been encouraging a showdown between Walker and Wisconsin's unions. The group is currently working with Tea Party activists and state officials in Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania to undermine union rights. 80,000 union supporters flooded Madison last weekend, demonstrating against Walker's plan. It's 2 minutes past the hour. And finally, the latest evil fruits of the British Petroleum Gulf oil spill. Baby dolphins, some barely 3 feet long, are washing up dead along the Mississippi and Alabama Gulf shorelines at 10 times the normal rate. In the past 2 weeks, 17 young dolphins either aborted before reaching maturity or died soon after birth in the first dolphin birthing season since the BP oil spill. Researchers at the Institute for Marine Mammal Studies in Gulfport say the high number of dolphin deaths is significant in light of the BP oil spill, when millions of barrels of crude oil containing toxins and carcinogens spewed into the Gulf of Mexico. The oil worked its way into sounds and bays where dolphins breed and give birth. Deaths of adult dolphins tripled in 2010, from a norm of 30 to 89. For GoHarrison on KPFK 90.7, this has been Mercy Malik with your Reality Check.
For details on all these stories and more, go to INNWorldReport.net.
GoHarrison.com.
What's new about Tiger Woods?
Michael Jackson. Elvis Presley.
O.J. Simpson. Abandoned baby. Order 9.
Harrison. Talk show. Random. Political. Outrageous. Philosophical. Analytical. Passionate. Hidden. Sunsets. Roadkill cooking tips. Open-minded. Swordsman. Bent. Resolute. Chocolate. Bushwhacker. Belt buckles. Investigative. Companion. Fearless. Call in. Piercing the cloud of mainstream entertainment. Live from Hollywood. It's Harrison.
It is 4 minutes past the hour. Harrison with you, your new best friend. Welcome and happy Tuesday. I'd love to say that there was good news about the Gulf of Mexico, but
Not so much.
Not so much.
No.
As you know, about a month and a half ago, we were down there live. I love traveling around and taking you on the road with us. It was a special Harrison on the Highway, and we talked to Gulf Shore fishermen and found out that they have been just savaged endlessly, not only by BP. Don't call them British Petroleum. They get really upset when you call them British Petroleum.
That's why I like inserting it into all
the
notes.
time.
Yeah, I do.
So they're just in a world of hurt, but we brought their live voices back, and we do have some movements going to help them out, help them help themselves, which is just sort of the plot of our human play here, which is why we're going to transfer right now into a really exciting subject. Now, if you are alive, You have a pulse over 10, and you can use Mr. Bush's internets. Then you have no doubt heard of Zeitgeist, the movement, and Zeitgeist, the movies. There are 3 of them out now. And, of course, we had on before, I don't know, a couple of months ago, Peter Joseph, the director of Zeitgeist Moving Forward, which is the latest movie. And by the way, these things are doing such gangbusters. We were live, or we went to the premiere, the Los Angeles premiere, and simultaneous to that, in hundreds of theaters around Earth, this movie was premiering, and it is the first time ever that a documentary has had that kind of super saturation around the planet, proving really that the content is so vitally important. It wasn't a Disney film. It was not even porn, which does that kind of opening for sure.
That's an accomplishment.
That isn't it? Well, it has been for me. But this, of course, is something so critical because it affects all the humans. And one of the things that we love to talk about here on Go Harrison is the solution. The solution. Yeah. It's one thing just to agitate how hellish life is. Climbing each hideous rung, your arms stretched another 20 feet. I can barely read. You know what I mean? And then there's the solution. And the solution is brought to us by a guy named Peter Joseph, who, by the way, is not a foreigner to how things work. Peter, I want to welcome you to Go Harrison and point out that you have been on the inside. You have been part of this exciting world of Wall Street that we bitch and complain about, rightfully so, I think. But how wonderful that you, having been there, can also tell us how it works and what the solutions and the workarounds are.
Well, thank you, Harrison. I appreciate that introduction, and thanks for having me on once again. And I think we've all been in the system one way or another, so it's not as much derailing it to certain industries like Wall Street or advertising, both areas I unfortunately have been involved in. But then again, that's the nature of progression, and I think as anyone in this system knows, that you have to do whatever you have to do to survive. And that fundamental orientation is what creates the distortion we've seen around us, because nothing in our system actually rewards the right moves anymore. Everything that's rewarded is actually adverse to actual progress. So it's all about narrow self-interest, all about looking after your institutions, perpetuating your institutions. For instance, today we have KPFK as a wonderful radio station, one of the few out there that actually is taking it upon themselves not to be influenced by the corporate world, which is dominating everything as it has for many decades, growing in effect. And now you have fund drives, which you have to utilize to maintain your establishment. And it's a very difficult thing to do. So you are involved in the exact same game, but yet, albeit on a much more altruistic level, because what you actually do is a service, as opposed to, say, I don't know, the institutions and the energy industries where, I don't know, since we don't have electric cars on the street, which is quite phenomenal to me since they've been around for over 150 years. Why is that? You might ask the question. That's
well,
because
why are they $70 if they're made by General Motors, which we still own, 23% of now?
Sure. Point being is that this system, the system itself, compounds the necessity for preservation in areas that shuts down progress. So you can't have preservation and progress at the same time. The goal of what I've been doing and what these films hope to point out is that we have to get on a completely different track in the social structure, a complete reorientation from the ground up in order to get society on a path that could be considered sustainable and progressive and actually be actually for the betterment of human society, relate and understand our values, what we need to live, both in our mental health and our personal health, to understand the symbiotic, synergistic attributes of nature. I don't mean that in an esoteric way, but we have this colossal...
In a non-esoteric way.
Well, and yes. Point being is that it's a detached type of environment out there, the entire market system. I mean, I can ramble on in many different angles, and I'll stop my tirade here in a second, but the entire thing is based on detached self-interest at a very fundamental level. And the system, since it's constant scarcity, constant debt, constant interest charges, constantly pulls everybody against the wall, if you will. So we have this stressed-out world now that is unnecessary. I mean, not to mention, we can get into establishment-oriented things, but keeping people stressed out is a very unique tactic that's used by the status quo, if you will, to put it in abstract form.
It's perfect. So,
how many people talk about the Iraq War right now? And very few, because the entire economic structure is collapsing across the world. So we don't have time for war anymore. That's passé. We can't talk about people still being killed and all the inhumanity that's occurring, because now it's come back to roost, if you will, on a different level.
Yeah.
So the distraction and what the system does is inherently it's a suicide economy, is what you could call it, and it stretches its tentacles out throughout every facet of human familial life, business life, and anyone that attempts to do anything altruistic or for the sake of community is instantly hit with every type of force to shut them down as fast as possible, because that's not what this system reinforces.
So we're going to talk about how we can, once again, navigate the shoals of insanity. How do we not only survive but flourish within a system that is hell-bent on bringing us all down and creating basically, worker bees, right? Each and every one of us a nice little drone with the invisible queen who's out of reach and out of touch. And we're looking at a movie called Zeitgeist Moving Forward. There are 3 of these. They've been online. They are trafficked beyond anybody's wildest Googling imagination. And I would recommend right now you Google the word Zeitgeist, 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 so you can see what we're talking about and get to meet Peter Joseph, who's making a really unique live appearance in here. You are all over the place, God knows where, on what day. And for you to be in here right now is really a nice treat and a pleasure. And we're going to make this movie available to you right here, right now on KPFK. Not only that, we're going to make the DVD of the latest movie. This is still playing in theaters all around the world. We're going to make the movie available to you right now so you don't have to necessarily go to Europe or Japan or Jakarta or wherever these countries. I mean, really, we're talking. This movie's everywhere, isn't it, Peter?
Yes. It's been. I think we're still working on a sort of a Guinness World Record interest to see if we've gotten something for the largest nonprofit release. I mean, there have been other releases, naturally, Michael Moore and huge guys with much more money than I have. Sure. But since this is completely independent, and I have no restrictions on the film, anyone essentially at this stage can take it upon themselves to rent a theater. All I ask is that either the money goes towards the community, meaning the Zeitgeist movement, which we can talk about in a moment, or they do it in a nonprofit way, or for free, ideally, break even.
So that's what we're doing. We want to give back to you for giving to us. And by giving to us, you support things like the Zeitgeist movement. You support KPFK. You support open and free radio, which is, Congress got together and voted to remove all funding for public radio, for public television, all the rest of it, wipe it out, leaving us with nothing but a 400-pound Rush Limbaugh and a bullhorn. Yeah. That frightens me, and I get what I call a reverse peristaltic inverted turtle syndrome, never again to mess. So I vote no on that, and I vote yes for Zeitgeist. Here's the deal. It's super simple, and it's super fun. We're going to give you the DVD. The DVD of the movie currently playing in the theater right now for just $60. That is $5 a month over an entire year. All right, we're giving you Zeitgeist Moving Forward. We have Peter Joseph in here right now, and you get a chance to learn how does the system work so that we're not endlessly confused when we turn on, the Zenith. We fire up the Admiral, right, and we focus in on this thing, and we wonder what are all these ridiculous messages going on. They seem contrary even to intuition. His movies, Peter Joseph's movies, break down to the molecule, down to the nubbin, why stuff works, including are you a product of your genetics or are you a product of something else? And if it is, what does it look like? When you push somebody's buttons, why do they respond? How do you avoid letting somebody push your buttons? It really is about finally taking control of your own life and not being a victim of forces greater than yourself, unless you choose to have a force greater than yourself, and that also is covered in here amply and fully. Here's the number, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Zeitgeist Moving Forward, the largest distributed nonprofit documentary in Earth's history so far, playing all over the world. We're giving you the DVD right now while the thing is still in the theater. It's just $5 a month over an entire year. Throw it on your credit card, write it off, and get fully informed. Use this as your own portable DVD school to show your children the history lessons that they never were taught. I went to private school. I was not taught about the Holocaust until college because I had a Jewish roommate who said, And I said, well, I know what? What? Right? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Wow.
This incredible, liberal arts culture that we're all supposed to have. Yes, I read Plato's dialogues, and then they took it away because there was hot man-on-man sexing, well, man-on-boy sexing. So now we're not going to study Greek history either. And then we have the Institute for Historical Review in Texas, right, the fundamentalist Christian organization that says we're going to actually remove European history from American history books because, it's unpatriotic. And then we wonder, how the hell am I sitting around hunting and gathering, walking on my knuckles in a monobrowed hispidulite manner with my tail growing out of my rear end and wondering where's the nearest tree so I can swing off it. It's the Scopes monkey trial all over again. How do I really feel? I'm not sure. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Just $5 a month on your credit card. You're giving to KPFK and you're supporting the Zeitgeist movement and these incredible movies. And we're giving you this theatrical release. It's just $5 a month on your credit card, just a total balance of $60 at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. We are luxuriated by a live human warm-bodied visit by the director himself, Peter Joseph. Listen, this guy is celebrated and worshipped the earth over, and I am not creating some lofty encomium here. I'm not throwing out some huge Jeremiad. Are you kidding? This guy, seriously, Charlene, who works with Peter here, how many emails does this poor man receive on, per hour? See? It's huge.
Incalculable.
It's incalculable.
It truly is. And so that's why he's in here, because he believes in public radio. He believes in unfettered freedom of speech. He believes that you and I have the right to talk back and forth even if it's silly. It's exciting, it's a miracle, and it's KPFK. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. And I'm getting a wink and a nod from behind the bulletproof glass telling me that for a $160 pledge, you get the first Zeitgeist film, the first Zeitgeist plus film. No. Let me try that one again.
The first Zeitgeist film plus.
It's Geoff's good grammar. Thank you, Geoff. Why don't you just run all the words together and we'll just make one big long German word.
And don't use capitals. Let's have an E coming stay.
What's the problem?
160. Now this is really cool. $160 pledge, right? You get not only the first Zeitgeist movie, but you get to have the film club membership here at KPFK. About 9 of the movies that we have in our film club are all up for Oscars or won Oscars.
Yeah.
We have a unique, weird, prognosticatory ability to pick movies and put from our film club, and the damn things win Oscars. So we have with us in here right now Peter Joseph of the Zeitgeist movie and the Zeitgeist movement, right? And he's getting the awards and the Oscars by virtue of the millions of people for whom this may be the first time they've been given the soothing emollient of an answer. Finally, after all this hideous, rusted barbed wire of crap that we're forced to consume either through the food supply or through the information supply, finally somebody who's actually been on the inside too. That's where the real talent is. When people give up, what do we want to call it? Cash and prizes for the betterment of the humans by the millions, by the hundreds of millions, because they've seen what goes on, and they also have the incredible mental intuition and spiritual essence to see what the end game is. And they say, you know what? I'm not going to participate. I function at such a high level that I'm courted endlessly by these huge industries because I can make them gobs of money, but I'm going to step away because it doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do. Killing lots of people and for my own personal enrichment so I can go yachting. Although yachting is fun, I will admit that.
No offense to yachters.
No offense to yachters, because by God, we better be politically correct here.
Well, yachters are welcome to pledge as well.
Yachters dial right now for the $160 pledge, where you get the first Zeitgeist film plus the film club membership. Or you can just for $60, so easy, get our Zeitgeist movie add-on right now, and it's just $5 a month. It's so amazing. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, and maybe you can even autograph some of the DVDs.
Sure, for you, why not?
Why not? Look at that.
Excellent.
Personally autographed. And this guy, this is the highest distributed nonprofit movie in Earth's history. Why? Because the content is radical. And we see before the release of this thing and concurrent to the distribution and the current running of this thing, we see the Middle East erupting. As, by the way, Peter, your movies talk about this. Your movies talk about when you have so many poor people bashed and hammered down, kicked into the corner, for every action, there's an equal and opposing reaction. And we're seeing this now.
Well, more so than that, we're seeing the end of a 150-year-long pyramid scheme in the debt generation system and the inflation system, jet generation, fiat currency, making more and more money to cover debt that doesn't exist, which has to go on into infinity. It's a big Ponzi scheme. And what you're seeing with the food shortages that sparked, different attributes in Egypt and everything that's happened, now we see problems occurring in the United States, in Wisconsin. All of it's based economically, one way or another. You can talk about democracy and dictators, but the dissatisfaction really comes from the deprivation. So it's always economic at the very foundation. And yes, in the movie I go into great detail about 4 or 5 different points that will lead to systemic collapse, both ecologically and economically in the fiscal sense. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying, and there's nothing that's going to stop that unless the system is in fact halted on some level. If the tenets and protocols of the monetary market system are kept intact, we keep playing the same games over and over again, it's like a cancer. It's going to consume itself, and there's no way that you can pull yourself out of it with the game that's been set up. So the game has to change. And I think the powers that be, if you will, are beginning to realize that, because there's no way around it. There's no way you're going to see the states in America get out of the debts and the collapses that are occurring and the bankruptcies, because it's like a big bubbling thing that the more they try to do something like print more money, it just generates more debt and more problems.
Quantitative easing.
It doesn't do
whatever
anything.
That is. It's not like a massage technique.
Well, it's all masked in jargon and nonsense and Fed speak as far as what this banking cartel known as the Federal Reserve, which as we all should know by now, is naturally there to preserve their commercial interests, hence the $23 trillion bank bailout, which is what's making the stock market rise as we speak, or peak out as we might be at a point now. Yet during this entire rise in the stock market, which only benefits a very small percent of the population, all the unemployment is still degrading and maneuvering down. All of the problems, resource-wise, inflation-wise, are continuing to occur. If there isn't a better example of how detached the financial system actually is, given the market system, is the barometer that's supposed to be of the economy, the U.S. stock market, completely decoupled, utterly decoupled. And so, out of all the things, as you mentioned earlier, I used to be a private equity trader for my own account for many years, and I began to learn what this system actually is. It does nothing. It's decoupled from everything that has to do with production. You're not actually doing anything. You're manipulating money for the sake of money with games that are not regulated at all, because guess who's really in power behind the U.S. government? Blank. They do whatever they want.
Who offered free cookies yesterday? Bank of America?
Sure.
Because you now are going to be paying a fee to interface with a live human behind their bulletproof glass.
Sure.
You'll be paying your $3.40 to say, here. So they were offering really expensive cookies to offset that.
Indeed.
I was talking yesterday to a Bank of America guy who was explaining to me that a few years ago, they're now required to keep a decade's worth of emails, every email they send back and forth, because in case there were monkey shines, which there never would be. Mm-hmm. But this was at Wells Fargo. And they were brought together officially, and they were told, let's go to the old-fashioned way and talk on the phone back and forth and not put anything in writing anymore. So, and this is a source of pride. He thought this was a cool idea, because why would he want his ass on the grill, right? So to understand this is why you need to have this movie Zeitgeist moving forward. And moving forward, the first 2 movies set up how things work, including a religion. Going back to, our pagan leaping around naked in front of trees in front of the sun god, which I do constantly, hoping somehow I'll get salvation. But it explains where this stuff comes from. We go back to Cyrus the Great. We look at all this stuff, the right hand of the father, the Praetorian Guard, all of it. It's the whole soup, cat, and pizzas in living color. These are the first 2 movies. They explain and break down everything into easy, understandable conversational language. This third movie, the one that is currently playing all over the world right now, which we're giving you the DVD right now for just $5 a month over an entire year. That's at $60. This is the answer. This is the part you're looking for, because you want the solution. You don't want to feel trapped. Even though Peter is explaining how stuff works, it's not just here's how it works, now go sit with it and have a nice day. No, it's here's the answer and here's the solution. Here's the workaround. Here's how we all get together and rebuild this place, this life, this civil society that you and I want to enjoy, have enjoyed in the past. It can remember back to I Love Lucy when our lives were in black and white and so much more navigable. This is the answer. This is the way out. This is the solution, and we're making it available to you right now. And he's going to autograph the DVD in a beautiful Sharpie magic marker just for you. We'll pick the color down the road. Mercy will pick it by putting it in her magic basket.
Right, which
And
I have
spinning
right
it around.
here.
Yes, you do.
And just to reiterate from a few weeks ago, no, the color of the ink is not significant in any way. We had a listener call in and ask that the color of the ink is not significant. It's just the import behind it, which is the individualization, and that's what we're giving you here today.
$5 a month over an entire year. That's it. We're going to hear a piece of audio from the movie Zeitgeist moving forward. Then we'll go to traffic with Jeff Thomas. It's $60, $5 a month over an entire year. 818-985-KPFK. 818-985-5735. 818-985-KPFK. Let's hear track 2. This is the Venus Project and Dr. Gabor Mate. You know him from Democracy Now! Amy Goodman, our own Amy Goodman, features him. He is among the many voices that Peter has culled from around the world, some of the greatest thinkers. If Einstein were alive today, or Niels Bohr, or Aldous Huxley, all these people are referenced, by the way, but he has been able to gather these people and put them into a film for you and finally explain how it works and how the answer can come to be. Let's hear now track 2. This is from the movie Zeitgeist moving forward. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. When in doubt, dial out. Let's hear it.
When I was a young man growing up in New York City, I refused to pledge allegiance to the flag. Of course, I was sent to the principal's office, and he asked me, "Why don't you want to pledge allegiance? Everybody does." I said, "Everybody once believed the earth was flat, but that doesn't make it so."
This is actually John
I explained that America owed everything it has to other cultures and other nations.
This is actually
and that
Jacques
I would
Fresco.
rather pledge allegiance to the earth and everyone on it.
Sorry.
Needless to say, it wasn't long before I left school entirely. And I set up a lab in my bedroom. There I began to learn about science and nature. I realized then that the universe is governed by laws, and that the human being, along with society itself, was not exempt from these laws. Then came the crash of 1929, which began what we now call the Great Depression. I found it difficult to understand why millions were out of work, homeless, starving, while all the factories were sitting there. The resources were unchanged. It was then that I realized that the rules of the economic game were inherently invalid. Shortly after came World War II, where various nations took turns systematically destroying each other. I later calculated that all the destruction and wasted resources spent on that war could have easily provided for every human need on the planet. Since that time, I have watched humanity set the stage for its own extinction. I have watched as the precious finite resources are perpetually wasted and destroyed in the name of profit and free markets. I have watched the social values of society be reduced into a base artificiality of materialism and mindless consumption. And I have watched as the monetary powers control the political structure of supposedly free societies. I'm 94 years old now, and I'm afraid my disposition is the same as it was 75 years ago. It's got to go.
So, you're a scientist, and somewhere along the way, hammered into your head is the inevitable nature versus nurture, and that's at least up there with Coke versus Pepsi or Greeks versus Trojans. So nature versus nurture, this by now utterly oversimplifying view of where influences are, influences on how a cell deals with an energy crisis up to what makes us who we are on the most individualistic levels of personality. And what you've got is this complete false dichotomy built around nature as deterministic. At the very bottom of all the causality of life is DNA and the code of codes and the Holy Grail, and everything is driven by it. And at the other end, a much more social science perspective, which is we are social organisms, and biology is for slime molds. Humans are free of biology, and obviously both views are nonsense. What you see instead is it is virtually impossible to understand how biology works outside the context of environment.
It is 30 minutes past the hour. Harrison with you, your new best friend. You are listening to Go Harrison on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Central California. We have with us director Peter Joseph. He directed the movie Zeitgeist Moving Forward and the other two, the previous two films. Zeitgeist Moving Forward, of course, right now being the largest independent and largest. This movie's huge. It's in
a nutshell,
hundreds of countries around Earth, many of which are erupting right now, fomenting in revolution. Really, it's absolutely extraordinary. And Peter, as people are dialing in and they're getting your DVD for just $5 a month pledge to KPFK at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. The voices we were just hearing, these are some of the most amazingly brilliant people on Earth.
Yeah, I would say in part, absolutely. In the context in which they described themselves, very brilliant individuals. Before the clip ended, it was Dr. Robert Sapolsky of Stanford University, who's a brilliant anthropologist and deals with the very controversial subject of nature versus nurture, among many other things, which is this over-glorified thing that human intent is somehow hardwired, and there's some evolutionary psychology we can never escape. And this been going on for a long time with sort of sociobiological theory versus behaviorism, if you want to reduce it to that, even though it's a very narrow way to do it. B.F. Skinner, things like that. So there's always this debate. And the whole point of that section, before I answered that, the introduction was Jacques Fresco, which is the very beginning of the film, and it's very poetic.
And he's
wonderful.
at full geezerdom now, right? 94, 95?
He's 95. He will be 95 in March, but he's
amazing.
He's incredible.
Right?
Yeah, when I'm 95, if I'm even live that long, I'll be some incoherent individual. He's just profound that he's been able to take care of himself so well and continue what he's been doing.
It's a testament, too, to people that understand and think this way. They end up being 95, fully cogent, with their complete faculties and, reasonable physical health, because they walk the walk that they're talking about. And that walk is presented, and that talk is presented, and those answers are presented in this movie. This is the ultimate manual for you to be able to navigate your own future, for you to be able to understand what's going on around you, and best, why. And once we understand the why, we can then see the what for what it is. And what it is often, usually, is traffic with Jeff Thomas.
Harrison. Completely unsponsored, common sense commuter traffic.
It is 33 minutes past the hour. This is your Go Harrison live and local traffic report on KPFK. Are you guys talking in there?
The mics are on, but I don't think all of us were aware that the mics are on.
Don't you guys want to know what's going on?
Yes.
I'm ready to respond.
In here? Okay, well, let's talk about the 91. It's moving eastward. It's a busy drive from Paramount Boulevard clear back to the 110. This is due to an overturned vehicle that caught fire. So be careful there.
No, fire.
In La Mirada, the 5 South, where there was a hit and run accident at Rosemead Boulevard. The southbound lanes are slow coming out of the downtown area and will remain busy clear into Anaheim. Finally, the 10 East is slow coming off the 605, but opens up at about Pacific Avenue and looks good heading into the Inland Empire. For Harrison, I'm Jeffrey Thomas on KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara. Now some news with Mercy Malik.
Harrison. News update.
Go Harrison News Time is 34 minutes past the hour, and I'm Mercy Malik with your reality check. An army colonel in the African nation of Congo has been convicted of crimes against humanity for his role in a rampage of brutal mass rapes and beatings on New Year's Day of this year. The Associated Press reports that prosecutors had sought the death penalty for Lieutenant Colonel Mutare Daniel Kabibi, who reportedly both ordered his troops to commit the atrocities and personally participated in the brutality. The court sentenced Kabibi to only 20 years in prison, a disappointment to victims and prosecutors, but a marked victory in the sense that it is the very first time a military officer has been held accountable for such crimes in the country. Almost 50 women testified in a mobile court brought to the remote mountain region where the incidents took place. The court was paid for by a coalition including George Soros' Open Society Initiative, the American Bar Association, Lawyers Without Borders, and the UN Mission to Congo. Systematic and brutal rape is epidemic in eastern Congo, with recent victims ranging from elderly women to a 1-month-old baby boy. It's 35 minutes past the hour. In happier environmental news, the American Council for an Energy-Efficient Economy released its annual Green Book last week, featuring environmental rankings for passenger vehicles in the U.S. Reuters News reports that the top-ranked green vehicle for the 8th year running is indeed the car that this reporter just parked outside. The Honda Civic GX, fueled entirely by natural gas, took top honors again, narrowly beating out the all-electric Nissan Leaf, and followed thereafter by the gasoline-powered but shockingly fuel-efficient Smart for 2, and finally the popular gasoline-electric hybrid Toyota Prius. The Civic GX is currently the only compressed natural gas passenger vehicle available in U.S. showrooms, and although the popularity of CNGs is growing, next year's anticipated release of an electric smart car and a plug-in Prius promise even more green options on the horizon. It's 36 minutes past the hour. And finally, we reported yesterday that Egyptians are sending words of encouragement and solidarity to protesters in the state of Wisconsin. Well, now it appears that they are additionally sending pizza. Politico.com reports that a Madison, Wisconsin pizzeria called Ian's on State Street has apparently been deluged by phone orders from around the world aiming to help feed the protesters. In addition to donations from all 50 states and the District of Columbia, Ian's has also received orders from 14 different countries around the globe. The well-wishers from Egypt join others from Turkey, Korea, Finland, New Zealand, Denmark, Australia, Canada, Germany, China, England, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and of course, Italy. It is unclear how Ian's became the conduit for such an international outpouring of support for the protesters, but one cashier thought it might have had something to do with Facebook. For GoHarrison on KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles, 98.7 Santa Barbara, 93.7 San Diego, and 99.5 Ridgecrest, China Lake, I'm Mercy Malik. You can be my friend on Facebook and send me news tips for your reality check.
News update. Harrison.
It is 38 minutes past the hour. Harrison with you, your new best friend. You are listening to Go Harrison on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Central California, and streaming worldwide through GoHarrison.com or KPFK.org, where we have archives up to 90 days for free and for fun in beautiful monophonic sound. Yep, we rip that stereo signal and we bash it down to a nice, thin, tinny monophonic signal just for you, so it'll fit in your iPod so you can bash about 20 other CDs right on top of it. That's the way we like it. We sandwich our audio just for you.
It's delicious.
Yes, and nutritious. We're talking to Peter Joseph. Peter Joseph, of course, is the world famous, and I don't say that because I like the sound of it, and I do. He is the world famous director of the Zeitgeist movies, 3 of them in toto. The one that is currently playing in theaters all around the world happens to be the largest distributed independent film in all of human history. Why? Because the message is exactly consistent with what we talk about ad nauseum here on KPFK. Finally, somebody put this together in a cinematic form so that you could throw in a DVD, watch it, and fully understand not only really the breadth of human history, but where this train ends up going. What does that depot look like at the end of the train line, and how do you get off without going smash into the wall? That's the key. It's about solution, solution, solution. We can offer you lots of icky poo-poo, but if we don't offer you the well, maybe my metaphors are out of control here. The point is, there is a solution, and we're going to give it to you right now. We're only looking at $5 a month, or, you know what, I think we have an even better deal here. I'm just looking at this stuff here. Let's do this. Let's, for a $160 pledge, thank you, and maybe Mercy, you can read all these wonderful names as well. For a $160 pledge, here's what we're going to do. We're going to not only give you the first Zeitgeist movie, okay, we are also going to give you the KPFK Film Club, which is over 85 films that you get to. Did I say 85 films that people
ridiculous.
Get to go to? That's right. And about 10 of these things have already won Oscars. We presented Nora's Will, The Two Escobars, Even the Rain, Wasteland, Gasland, Restrepo, all Oscar nominated for Best Documentary this year, right? True Grit. I mean, all of these were our movies. Well, I would say they were our movies, but we were presenting our selection, right. And you get to have about 85 plus movies for free. We're giving that to you right now as a free add-on. How do you like that? Boy, and that's good for two. So you and a person that you, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, you and your, is that right, Jeff?
That is correct.
That is correct. And there it comes
Jeff.
From the voice of God.
That's right.
And we're throwing in the KPFK member benefits card. Since it is over $100, since you are getting the Zeitgeist movie that explains everything and the roadmap into your future, you're getting the film club and the KPFK member benefits card, which is over 40 vendors, all right? One of which is our media deal of the century that we are going to be presenting tomorrow, right, with DirecTV, which is an $1,800 value. That's just one of the vendors, right?
Ridiculous.
Where you get to reduce your media, your TV, cable, whatever you call it. This is via satellite, right? Your satellite coverage. It goes, if you're paying like $100 a month or $110 for HBO, Showtime, Dexter, Nurse Jackie, all of that stuff, it'll go down to about $65 a month. So it's reduced almost 50% forever, and it's fully underwritten by one of our wonderful angels so that you can watch Amy Goodman, you can watch Tom Hartman, you can watch Al Jazeera, you can see it live in your living room. And, you know, networks that are really forbidden here, that being Al Jazeera and others, you can have full access to alternative sources of information. We're making that available to you. So you get all three of these things for a $160 pledge. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. What's that number?
818-985-5735 or 818-985-KPFK. That's right, dial in now. Yeah.
Let's thank a few people.
Oh, big thanks to Jessica Mesa in Palmdale. Thank you, Jessica, for calling in and pledging. Big thanks to Sandra Russell in Oxnard. Sandra, we love you. Also, Jeff Kelly from Brea, California. Great job, Jeff, supporting the station. Let's also thank Richard Vargas from Walnut, California. Isn't that up north? Mm-hmm. That's Northern California. Good. All right, Richard, pitching in. I love it. Another big thanks to Nora Barton in Glendale, right around the corner. And some of these people, by the way, requested signed copies.
Well, so they'll get them.
We're going to get them out.
Peter Joseph's barbed wire-like signature, which looks like mine. But that's what happens when you're awake.
And that's how you know it's authentic.
Let's also thank Anthony Mouse from Torrance and in Camarillo. We got an anonymous pledge from Camarillo. We got an anonymous pledge from Orange. Did I say Camarillo?
It's Camarillo, I think.
What are you laughing at?
Well, it sounds like armadillo.
Let's go back to the show. 818-985-KPFK, our number's here. Yes. 818-985-5735. $160 pledge. Here's what you're getting. The first Zeitgeist film. This nets out human history as we understand it. Not the official human history by the people that owned the printing presses that really told it from their side, the conqueror. But this is often from the side of the vanquished, which is actually the larger population base. This is the history you haven't been taught. This is Howard Zinn on steroids. This is amazing stuff. You need to see it. You need to have access to this. You need to show it to your children if you want to really help them understand why stuff is the way it is so that you can get to the future. Let's talk about the solution here. We have Peter Joseph, the director of Zeitgeist, moving forward with us right now here in studio. And what would the solution be? Here we are with our nails bitten down to these. Look at the bone. You see the marrow coming out of the end of my hand. It's horrible, right? So what's the solution?
The solution, sadly, is but yet in an excitable sense, is a complete overhaul. It's something that I think most people don't want to face. You can't have a growth economy, for one. We'll just throw that out there. You have to have a steady state economy, which would make sense to a 4-year-old if you think about it. There's no equilibrium in anything that we're doing, so you can't assume that this paradigm of growth at any level can be sustained. That even goes for, I won't even go on that tangent, but there's a huge topic about this sort of growth assumption from, as controversial as it is, this sort of reproductive quality that people have grown to assume that they don't really think about what their relationship to the environment is when they produce children. And we've reached a point in time. I'm not saying that we can't have billions more people on the planet. Well, in this system, frankly, we can't, because it can't sustain it. It's too inefficient. But that's again for another tangent of mine.
Right.
But there's a kind of a bleak view that we can just keep consuming and growing, and it's not going to work that way. So at a very foundational level, there's this ignorance, if you will, about what sustaining life actually means. People don't relate to actually growing food or the processes. They go to the store and buy it. They're completely decoupled from natural processes. So we have to kind of fall back to what we've lost since, say, the First Nations people, if you will. The early Indian cultures really understood the relationship to the environment, and then Christopher Columbus comes along, and you get to see the dichotomy hit. Early civilizations were far less violent. And
early syphilis.
Well, a whole big conversation there when the first world met the second world, if you will. But so a steady state economy is the foundation of what we call a resource-based economy. Resource-based economy is very simple. Instead of having this intermediary form of exchange with currency, instead of seeking money, instead of the entire point of a corporation to go out and make as much money as possible and expand, the point is to actually relate it to actual tangible resources, which is something that we don't do, and no one even has a thought of what that even means. You have to actually think about the scientific foundation of the resources that you're using, the designs that you incorporate. You have to think about what the most sustainable attributes of using those resources might be, and what you get is a ground-up type of approach for social organization that's utterly self-evident, which is based on sustainability, efficiency, peak preservation, where you say to yourself, it's a finite planet. We have to actually take care and not exhaust and exploit. And that's drilled into the ground now. Everyone knows, exploit, exhaust, extraction, but they don't think about the solution. The solution would have to be a complete reorganization of the entire corporate enterprise, the entire political sphere, the entire edifice of what we've come to understand as normality in human society, which is essentially excessive. Has to be overturned if we expect to sustain the growing population as it is.
Here's the good news. All of this is based out. All of this is laid out for you in easy, understandable terms, what the actual solutions are by folks like Jacques Fresco, who's going to be 95, who's been on the planet, who went through the first Great Depression. All these amazing thinkers from around the world, crafted and culled, put together and articulated by director Peter Joseph, who's sitting in studio with us right now. We're going to have him talk a little bit about the first Zeitgeist movie, which you're getting for your $160 pledge. You not only get the first Zeitgeist movie, we give you open access to our full KPFK Film Club. That's going to be over 85 films, extraordinary movies, about 10 of which were all given Oscars or nominated for Oscars. These are the picks that we make, having this weird prescience for cinematography, which is one of the reasons we have Peter in here, because we know good movie making when we see it. And Peter, let's talk for a second about the first Zeitgeist. Again, I'm going to give out the phone. Here, I invite you up to the microphone, then I'm going to jump in and give the phone numbers as he leans back, and then forward, and then back. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. $160 pledge, you get not only the first Zeitgeist film on DVD, you get the film membership club, and you get the KPFK member benefits card, which has over 40 vendors on it, and each week we're adding more and more. One of the vendors, of course, is our media sponsor, which is Complex TV, which has DirecTV and Dish, and what they're doing is cutting your satellite costs per month by up to 50% ongoing. Right? These are the kind of angels that support freedom of speech, that give you in your living room Amy Goodman. You can watch this. You get Al Jazeera on these channels. We're opening up the world for you for a $160 pledge. Throw it on your credit card, pay it one time, and forget about it. And enjoy the incredible fruits. The member benefit card alone has infinite value. Each of these vendors, if you added it up and what you end up paying $160, break that down to what it is a week, a month, and you end up getting tens of thousands of dollars back. Unbelievable. A great way for you to navigate your own future. Peter Joseph, the first Zeitgeist movie, when I watched it, I have to tell you, I was my exophthalmic right? My eyeballs were poking out. You could actually feel my pulse on one of the throbbing veins, right?
That sounds very healthy.
Yeah, right. Blood pressure problem.
That won't necessarily happen to you if you watch the movie.
I had heard anecdotally, and I'd read the philosophy of a lot of these things, but to actually see it and the way you animated it, I mean, it was like South Park, on a rowboat. It was fun. It's wonderful. You're able to tell a story so that everybody can absorb the information. And in the first Zeitgeist, you explain how all this crap started. If this isn't the ultimate, virtual history book, nothing is.
Well, I think the central theme of that work is this mythology that permeates culture, every generation that I can think back to, that the assumptions of the status quo are given. They're assumed as to be empirically true, and every single culture, every generation does this. Today, we sit around thinking that the world that we live in is static, and this is the highest peak of human civilization. This has been it's been throughout. Socrates, for example, brilliant philosopher, never reflected on the slavery during his period of time. It was normality. It was a given. So Zeitgeist 1 explores different forms of mythology. Religion, to me, as a word, really is this blind assumption of empirical truth. And anyone who thinks such a thing exists has to step way back as far as I'm concerned. So the expose on early Christianity and comparative religion at the beginning, and then it moves into basically war attributes, false flag terrorism, all the lies and nonsense that many today finally have come to more or less recognize. They don't know the history, though, unfortunately, the history of manipulation, the history of using nationalism and different emotional pools to get people behind farce wars, farce events, to feed this sort of status quo view, for lack of a better expression, that keeps the people in power, because that's what it's about. You have to support the values of the establishment if the establishment's going to hold true, and that's exactly what people in the current society do, whether they think about it or not. Most of them, of course.
And let me laud you also. You also look at 9/11. You look at false flag operations. This is huge with so many Americans, let's say, and Europeans too. I mean, they have a hell of an appetite for what went on here, that we are not allowed really to discuss without being called cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs,
and
right?
access to a lot of information that's not easy to get here.
And you reveal it, Peter Joseph, in your Zeitgeist films. You actually go into this and explore it in a sober, enlightened way that makes sense out of the senselessness. If people are interested in this, and I know everybody listening is, this is a wonderful way to actually get access to this information and have it vetted out by some of the greatest thinkers and analysts and put into perspective and into scope what stuff is, how it got that way, and where things ultimately are going. Again, that's the best part. I want to know what the end game is so that I don't have to step into the ultimate trap. I can step around it and create my own world that works. And Peter breaks down piece by piece, ideology by ideology, the steps that you and I need to do. And it doesn't mean endless suffering. As a matter of fact, I would say, Peter, after watching Zeitgeist moving forward, it looks pretty fabulous to me. I want that upstairs glass-looking thing that looks over, clean air and water.
Yeah, see, people don't realize how far behind our social approaches really are, from the construction of homes to the layouts of our cities, of course, to the energy mediums that we've had at our disposal for a long time, but are paralyzed by the established orthodoxies that want to maintain their market share, and of course tie straight into the governments of the world. So you can't fight it because it's a built-in system. It's a corporate fascist state, if you will, globally. It sounds extreme to say that, but at the end of the day, money is what rules everything. It's the money that gets people on the airtime for their campaigns for presidential elections. If you don't have money, you have nothing, and you really can't influence anything. And that's how the system is kind of rigged, if you will. I hate to make it sound so conspiratorial in that sense, but
it is.
But whether it's deliberate or not, that's the way it works out. And I give numerous examples in the new film about how classism and what I call structural classism, which is actually a play off words of structural racism by Stokely Carmichael, the Black Panthers. So because that's exactly what we have today. It's not seen, but it's structural classism. It's equally as detrimental and aberrated as racism was, structural racism. Back in Lyndon Johnson's administration, what they used to do to get blacks in prison as fast as possible, to remove their right to vote. All of these things hold true, and classism is now the new paradigm since they can't play the race card anymore. But I say they. I say they in a fluid sense. It's not some. It's dangerous to
Congealed.
talk like that because people automatically assume they have to fight some entity.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a mentality, and the mentality comes from the system. The more ruthless you are, the more decoupled you can be, the less altruistic, the more rewarded you are in this environment. So it's a very complex psychological neuroses that we have to overcome before we can hopefully move into an environment that will actually take advantage of what we can do technologically to actually apply modern knowledge of sociology to, say, the prison system and rehabilitation. I mean, people don't seem to understand. They think violence is some random thing. It comes from somewhere. People aren't just born violent. People aren't born to rob people. 95% of all crimes are basically monetary or drug-related. We put people in prison for drugs when they really have a disorder, as Dr. Gabor Mate it points out very clearly that there's an abuse process and people have to fill a void. And they'll become alcoholics because they're hurt. They're in pain. That's why they do it. But no, you get arrested with drugs, boom, throw you in jail, as though that's going to help anything. It's going to help your pain. And then, of course, all sorts of other financial interests come from slave labor used from prison institutions. So it's one big, messy thing that self-perpetuates this traumatic neuroses.
I love it. We're talking to Peter Joseph. He is the director of the 3 Zeitgeist films. The third one, moving forward, is playing all over the world right now. We have the DVD for you. We're doing a special deal right now for a $160 pledge to KPFK. We're giving you the first Zeitgeist movie. He's going to autograph it. We're also giving you full and open access to the KPFK Film Club, which, as you know, was about 10 of the different features from last year. All won Oscars or were nominated. We also have a ton of films for this year. You get to go see each and every one of them. Many will receive Oscars or definitely nominations. These are the great films, just like Peter's film, Zeitgeist Moving Forward, and the first Zeitgeist movie that we're giving you for the $160 pledge, and the Film Club, and our KPFK member benefits card, which has over 40 vendors, right, that do amazing things for you, that make your life affordable by cutting costs way over 50%. You can actually do the things that you need to do, and they'll be underwritten by what? Underwritten.
Those things be underwritten by some people who are going to step forward now.
Thank you so much. As we humble ourselves, I want to just say hi very quickly, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Say hi very quickly to Charlene Bezegi, because we have a big Z Forum coming up, a big, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Lena, ooh, I love that smoky
great
voice.
radio voice.
Thank you.
So give us the quick upload in a minute. You've got a big old conference coming up that I'm actually going to be speaking at, because this is so exciting.
Yes, we're thrilled to have you, Harrison. It's Z-Day. It's an annual event every day for people to get together around the world. It's actually more events than the global release. We'll have probably 450 to 500 locations for Z-Day, exploring the intellectual principles of the movement and exposing people to the material. It's open to the public all around the world. And ours is here in Los Angeles, downtown at the LA Convention Center. And it's Saturday, March 12th. And it's going to be going all day. There's a schedule of events, and ticketing is free, but you do need to reserve a ticket. So if you go to zdayla.eventbrite, and Bright is spelled BRITE.com. So that's zdayla.eventbrite.com. It has the whole schedule of events, including Harrison and Dayaki from the Artivist Film Festival, and we have Michael Rupert from Collapse speaking, and one of the professors from Zeitgeist Moving Forward, and a lot of coordinators speaking. So it'll be a great day of events. You can come to any 3 of the sections of the day, and we hope everyone can make it.
Awesome, and we will have more information on that downcoming. I'm just going to recap, and thank you, Peter Joseph, for having come in. I know you flap back and forth between London and wherever, and thank you for being a global citizen and bringing this to us. And congratulations on having the most widely distributed independent film in all of human history. Doesn't that sound mild?
It's as good as it gets.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me and supporting the cause.
My pleasure. And thank you for supporting us and for
Absolutely.
getting this content out there in such a smart way. You know, we love smart. We love A+.
Good.
Yes.
Right? Mediocre blows. 818-985-160 pledge, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, $160 pledge. You get the first Zeitgeist movie autographed by Peter Joseph himself. You get full and complete access to the KPFK Film Club. Over 10 of the movies got Oscars or Oscar nominations. Same thing's going to happen this year. Plus, we give you our member benefits card, which gives you media deals, food, you name it. The whole soup, cat, and pizzas, it's all there. 818-985-KPFK, and we will see you tomorrow.
This is what we're offering you during this fund drive.
We have probably more politicized artists in the 21st century than we had in the 1960s.
People say, well, do you feel like it's dangerous to be speaking out? And my answer is that I feel like it's more dangerous to not be speaking out.
I'm really riding for the truth. I'm riding for people who are interested in seeing the truth be heard and interested in seeing there be a change.
All of the